Okay, where's our video? All right, I think we're up now. Oh, trying new things when you haven't streamed for a while is always big fun. Can you guys hear me okay? Hopefully it's all working. And Christian, I put your chat up there to let you know that yes, I did see your super chat before we had to switch it over. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? I'm kind of keeping my eye on things here the best I can. All right, so yeah, let me, Christian, remind me again what your chat was, what your message was, and I'll pull it up on the screen and we'll start with that. And thank you for the super chat, by the way. Hey, operations room, what is going on? You guys definitely check out the operations room if you're into military history. Phenomenal stuff. They do a great job. So yeah, I'm going to get to all of the questions as best I can. I'm going to try to focus them a little bit by pulling them up the screen on the screen. Operations room, yes, I very much enjoyed the UK trip. Already looking forward to being back again as soon as I can. I want to make sure I get Christian's chat. Despite the terrible football, he said. Well, West Brom did really well. They scored in the first minute in that game, and we won 2-0. So that one worked out. So all right, let me pull up Christian's chat here. Could you make a video regarding why you think the Electoral College should be kept and why it is still important? Yeah, that's a really good idea, especially because I know that some of my fellow YouTubers don't share my opinion on the Electoral College. So yeah, I think that's a great idea and definitely something we could do at some point. So I'm going to get to as many of these as I can. I know there's a lot of questions up. As an Ohio native, what is your opinion on Cincinnati? I love Cincinnati. I'm not a huge fan of the culture, and by the culture I mean specifically Skyline Chili. I don't get it at all. I just don't get the fascination with Skyline Chili. Otherwise, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in Cincinnati. I've been there a few times. It's literally as far away in Ohio as you can get from where I live. But I've been there a few times, and I've always really enjoyed it. So I've actually also flown into the airport there a few times. Professor what? Let me get to your question real quick. No, you know what? I should text Terry to Mr. Terry, because Terry's his last name, not his first name. I should text Mr. Terry and talk to him about that. We did talk about making a bet about who would hit 500,000 subscribers first. We'll probably both do it late this year or early next year, because we both hit 400,000 within a couple of days of each other. So we thought it might be kind of fun to do that. I just passed him back up in the last week or two, because I had passed him, then he passed me, and now I just passed him again. So it's kind of going back and forth a little bit. All right, lots of questions here. So I'm definitely doing the super chats because I want to make sure that I do those. And thank you to those of you who have done super chats, but I'm going to try to get to some of the other ones as well. Have I ever been or want to visit Fort Fisher? Yes, I have been to Fort Macon in North Carolina? It's down on the southern coast of North Carolina, but I've never been to Fort Fisher, but I definitely would like to get there. That's definitely on my list. I got a whole list of stuff in the Carolinas I want to do. I was just in Charleston and did some videos that you guys will be seeing in the next few weeks or months, maybe, from Charleston area. But I want to do a whole series on like the Revolutionary War, the Southern campaign. And then I also want to cover some of the Civil War stuff. I just found out that I had a great uncle who was killed at Bentonville in March of '65. So I want to get to the Bentonville battlefield as well. Waffle Bro, thank you for that. Shogun, I'm actually going to watch the first episode tonight, so I'll come back to you with my thoughts on that. I've heard really good things, though. So far, the people I've talked to that have watched it have really enjoyed it. I'm trying to wait until Masters of the Air is done first, but oh man, should I even answer this question? I am going to get into talking a little bit about what's coming up on the channel as far as my travel and meetups go. But speaking of travel, History of War Cinema is my friend Marcel from the Netherlands. He and I have been on several fun tours together over in Europe. I have another one coming up. We're going to be in Ypres and the Somme together. So yes, you are one of my favorite travel buddies, Marcel, but you're too tall. You make me look short in all the pictures. So I have to try and like get as far away from you in the pictures as I can because you're so much taller than me. All right. So thoughts on Masters of the Air. And I know if Operations Room is still in here, I know he's had some issues with some of the portrayals in Masters of the Air, especially concerning the British portrayal, being British himself. So my thoughts on Masters of the Air. First of all, I'm really actually pretty surprised at how many little details they're getting right. And by that, I mean, having read the book Masters of the Air, and just today I finished Harry Crosby's book. So if you're familiar with Harry Crosby, he's kind of one of the four main characters. I was talking to John Orloff, who's one of the writers on Masters of the Air, and he said really it is different than, say, Band of Brothers in that you don't have as many characters you really can connect with because there was so much turnover in the 100th Bomb Group as far as the casualties. But he said they really intended for there to be four characters that you connect with, and that's Clevin, whose name is actually pronounced Cleven, I found out. His family members who are alive today say it's pronounced Cleven, not Clevin. I would have pronounced it Clevin too. Clevin, Egan, Rosenthal, and Crosby are the four characters that we are meant to kind of follow and connect with. I think personally, probably Crosby's my favorite, but and a lot of people have complained that Clevin and Egan seem too Hollywood. But if you read the books, specifically the two books I've read, Masters of the Air and On a Wing and a Prayer by Harry Crosby, that's exactly how they were seen by the guys on the 100th. The guys on the 100th thought they were these Hollywood types. They were the guys that everyone wanted to be like. And then Rosenthal was the professional soldier, the guy who just did his job and did it really, really well. And Harry Crosby was kind of a little bit more of a playboy. But Crosby is he ended up having a doctorate and was a college professor, and so it's no surprise he's a writer. But his book is fantastic, and if you enjoy Masters of the Air, I highly recommend you check out his book because the way he describes things makes it really easy to understand exactly what it was like. He paints the picture of it so well. And there are a lot of details, like I said, that they get right. Like there's a scene where Crosby is standing naked in front of the mirror, trying on his hat when Landra walks in. I think they call her Sandra on the series, but she was actually known as Landra. That exactly is how it was described by Harry Crosby in the book. So little things like that. Him having the conversation with the British guys at Oxford about that famous saying, the problem with Americans is they're oversexed, overpaid, and over here. And then the response from Americans being, well, you're undersexed, underpaid, and under Eisenhower. Those are things he described in his book from that setting at Oxford. So just little things like that I thought were really cool. The one where the mechanic goes up in the plane and he's fixing it while they're taxiing, that really happened. Just a lot of those kinds of things. Also, I found out that if you're familiar with, and I'm going to get to all these other chats in a minute. If you're familiar with early on, they had the scene with the ball turret gunner who gets stuck in the ball turret and they can't get him out, and the plane explodes with him in it. Well, I found out that guy was from my hometown, Youngstown, Ohio, where I live. That's where he's from. I was blown away when I discovered that. That was really cool. So somebody asked, where would I put it in terms of things? For me, it's just below Band of Brothers, but better than the Pacific. I don't know. I just had a hard time connecting with the Pacific for some reason. I don't think the Pacific's bad. And I also don't think it's a good idea to compare it to Band of Brothers, because Band of Brothers is like all time great, right? I mean, it's one of the greatest things ever produced for television. So I think it's unfair to be comparing everything to that. It can be amazing television and not be as good as Band of Brothers. Both can be true at the same time. So let me catch up on the other super chats here, and I'll try to get to some more of your questions as soon as I can. Hopefully I don't miss any here, because I know there were a bunch before I got to them. Okay, here we go. Getting caught up. Sorry, guys. Wu-Tang Shaolin, thank you for the super chat. Few of us are from Youngstown, Bellaria, and Wedgwood in the house. Yes, love me some Wedgwood pizza. Oh my gosh, Wedgwood pizza is so good. Thank you for that, Marlon. Just saying hi. I wanted to give you a shout out for the great content. Stumbled on your content or channel several months ago by accident. Well, I'm glad that you did, Marlon, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Greatest Within. Your family is from Egypt. I hope you check out Sinai, especially. So I'm going to be, going to Egypt early March. That is a group tour, and we have, it's actually going to go up for public booking in just a couple of weeks. It's already been available to our patrons and members, who have snapped up 13 of the 20 spots on that tour. It's next March. So we've got 7 spots still available for the Egypt tour. I don't think I'm going to get to Sinai, unfortunately, but I am very, very excited to see Egypt. It's a place I've wanted to go most of my life. So much incredible history there. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right. All right, let me catch up on the last couple of super chats, and we'll get to some other questions here. Going to Gettysburg in 2 weeks for a weekend. Got any tips on what to see? Thank you for that, Tyler. When are you going? Because I'm going to be in Gettysburg. Well, not for about a month. For those of you who don't know, JD from the History Underground and myself, we are doing a forum at the Adams County Historical Society on Sunday, April 7th. As part of the Gettysburg Film Festival. We're going to be there that whole weekend. My son Eli will be there with me for the Gettysburg Film Festival. Ken Burns is the reason that I got into Civil War history in the first place. Going to get to meet him and actually get a chance to interview him briefly for the channel. There are a couple of other, and when I say movie stars and TV stars, I'm talking like huge stars that are going to be there. They haven't been announced yet, so I don't have permission to talk about them. But let me just say, huge. They're people everybody knows, big time stars that are going to be a part of that weekend. Can't wait to tell you who they are. I just can't yet. So, but tips on what to see. Well, the first thing I would say would be Little Round Top, but Little Round Top's actually still closed to the public, so you can't see that. Definitely check out Culp's Hill. It's a forgotten part of the battlefield that's really important. Cemetery Hill is amazing. The first day's battlefield is probably one of my favorite spots. Definitely check out the Gettysburg Museum of History. From the outside, it doesn't look like much, but it is incredible what Eric has in that museum. His collection, and it's free. Gettysburg Museum of History, I think it's on Baltimore Street, just south of the center of town. Absolutely must see. And JD and I are going to be doing a meetup. So there's tickets for sale for that Q&A, that forum that we're doing. It will be live streamed on the channel on Sunday, April 7th. There are still tickets available. If you go to the Gettysburg Film Festival, just go to their website. You can get the tickets on there. Last I knew, it was a little over half sold out. So there's still some tickets available for that. But we are also doing some kind of a meetup on Saturday at the Gettysburg Museum of History. The details will be coming out about that. All right. Thomas Theorist, thank you for that. Could you react to the unlucky tugs about Thomas the Tank Engine, about a lot of British in real life history. So I actually got to do something when I was in England. I'm going to talk a little bit about my recent UK trip here in a few minutes. I spent a day up in the greater Manchester area, which first of all was awesome. And I was with the guys from the channel Decades. If you've seen, I've done a couple of reactions to their videos. And then the one guy from Decades is also, he does a gaming channel called Fishy. He's got like 400,000 subscribers. But they took me around for the day. We had so much fun. Ended the day at a pub. I didn't realize how hilly the Manchester area is. And we actually went up into Yorkshire a little bit. And we went to one of the guys he operates like steam trains. And so they took me up and we were looking at one of them. And that was really cool. So I'll have to remember to check that out. All right. I'm almost caught up on the super chats here. Raul Anderson, studying history and visited Danish National Archives last week. Saw the original alliance treaty with Napoleon with his signature. That is amazing. I need to get to Denmark. I want to get to Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, all of it. I've got so many things on my bucket list I want to get to. That's very, very cool. I'm glad you got to see that. What was California's involvement in the Civil War? Didn't he mention California gold helping the war economy? I don't remember if Grant did or not. That doesn't mean he didn't. California was so distant as far as its connection to the rest of the Union, being on the other side of the Great Plains with a lot of Native Americans in between. But there were troops from California. Many of the generals on both sides had served in California. But beyond that, I mean, California was still pretty sparsely populated at the time. So not a huge connection. Connor, your brother Niall plays Roland Gangwer in this show. Really? Oh, yeah. I think you might have mentioned that. I think I saw that somewhere in a comment before in something I posted. That is very cool. What an awesome connection to be able to be a part of something so big like that. That's great. Mike, you're from Warren, Youngstown. I was born in Warren. I was born in Warren. My kids were, well, two of my boys were both born in Warren. Both my parents were born in Warren. You have a history degree from YSU. My wife and sister graduated from YSU. Sports and film historian. Yes. Send me an email, Mike, vloggingthroughhistory@gmail.com. We'll figure something out. We'll get connected sometime. Used to do sports history channel. Awesome. Yeah, let's connect at some point. I live in Green Township. So Leo Zhang, any more reactions to operations rooms, USAAF bomb? Yeah, I will be doing some more operations room reactions for sure. I've been trying to do more than just like, it's really easy for me to fall into the trap of just doing stuff on military history because it's what I'm interested in a lot of the time. So I've been trying to do non-military stuff, but I definitely will get back to some more operations room. Their stuff is top notch. I guess the storm must have passed us by. It doesn't sound like it's doing that anymore outside. Deontay Smith, thank you for the super chat. How have you done a video on the first and second Italo-Ethiopian wars? That's in the lead up to World War II. I have not. And honestly, I don't know much, which means that probably would be a good idea for me to cover that sometime because it's not something I know much about. So that's something I need to do for sure. Oh boy, we're still getting caught up on super chats here. Have you have mentioned that you have a rule to not cover history that is not older than 20 years? Gulf War and the Iraq War outside of that rule? Well, they are. I mean, they're 30. Well, the Gulf War is 30 years away. I was in middle school when the Gulf War happened. I remember that because I was in 8th grade, and in 8th grade at my middle school is when they took the school trip to Washington, D.C. every year. And I was really looking forward to our school trip. And they almost canceled it because of the Gulf War, which is funny because I heard my favorite comedian right now is Nate Bargatze, who is just ridiculously funny. And he mentioned something in one of his comedy specials about the same thing happening, about his school almost canceling their trip because of, or maybe they did cancel it because of the Gulf War. So yeah, I remember that really well. But we won that war so fast that by the time we took our trip in April, it was all over. So um, Iraq War, I probably won't cover quite yet. But again, Operations Room has some fantastic stuff on both of those wars. They do a really good job with. Jacob, thank you so much for that super chat. Very generous of you. You watch all the videos that I post. I really appreciate that. And guys, please, I see a lot of comments from people sometimes like about how, oh, I wish I could be a patron or a member, if you can't, that I totally get that. Everybody's at a different place in life. Just by watching the videos, every time you watch a video, leave a comment, hit the like button. It helps. So I'm grateful for all of it. I really, really am. All right, we are almost there. Cosmoxia, thank you for that. Almost caught up here. Maxime Munger, do you know as much about the French monarchy as I do about the English one? No, not even close, unfortunately. I wish I knew more. I know comparatively very little about the French monarchy. John, what is up, my friend? John and I are going to be in Italy in about a month together. We got to meet last year, last summer during Gettysburg 160, because he was there for that forum that JD and I did with the guys from American Battlefield Trust. Consider this the unsponsored plug for the Seminary Ridge Museum at Gettysburg. Do the cupola tour. I haven't done that yet, and I need to. I've been there because we did that forum JD and I did with the guys from addressing Gettysburg. Also, the peach orchard and the wheat field. Yes, 100%. I agree with that, John. And John, I know, has spent a lot of time at that battlefield too. So, are we caught up? I think we're just about caught up with super chats. Taylor K64, thank you. Want to share that in my ancestry research had trouble with no records pre 1800s. Yeah, that's true. Called the South Carolina Archives. Turns out Sherman burned the state house, which had those records. Yeah. And unfortunately, there are a lot of courthouse fires, even ones not connected with the Civil War, that destroyed a lot of those records, unfortunately. Flex Tape Yeet, cool name, by the way. Thank you for that. British, unfortunately, part French fan here. Do I think Donald Trump will be seen as a less divisive president as time moves on? I don't know. He seems like he's getting more divisive in his most recent, his third run for the presidency. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I have been wrong before about my predictions, so it's hard to say. How's the weather in Ohio? Well, right now it's beautiful. It's like 70 degrees and sunny. I've been outside doing work. Yesterday, I did a bunch of yard work, gathered up a bunch of branches that had broken off of trees and tried to burn some of that. Can't burn anything till 6 p.m. in Ohio. We have a no burning ordinance for the whole state in March, April, May, October, and November from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. in Ohio. So I had to wait till 6 p.m. to burn it. Storms are coming through. It's going to be getting colder. It's going to be a little cooler the next several days, but it's been really nice the last couple of days. Grady Maloney, thank you. What do I think about the fat electrician? First of all, he's a super nice guy. He reached out to me after the first reaction I did, sent me some merch. It was very, very nice. I think he's a phenomenal storyteller. He does a great job, and that's why he's grown his audience so much, and rightly so, because he's a very engaging storyteller, and I think he has a unique way of getting people interested in history. I think he would be the first one to admit that sometimes he plays a little fast and loose with the facts. Not intentionally so, but I think sometimes he just gets some stuff wrong, and he acknowledges that, which makes it a little more difficult for me to do reactions to his stuff unless it's a topic I know a lot about, because it makes me nervous when I know that when he doesn't always get the facts right, because I'm afraid that I'll take something he says as being true when it might not be. So I'll probably only cover topics he does that I know enough about that I can feel confident in doing that. And listen, this is not I'm not coming down on the guy. I think what he's doing is great. And I think there's a place for what he does, and it gets people interested in history that might not otherwise get interested in it. Just have to be careful with that stuff. That's all. Captain Lamp, thank you. As far as recent conflicts goes, the Soviet-Afghan War, no, that was in the 80s. So I think that's something that would be within the realm of what I'd be willing to cover. Thank you for getting you into War Hospital. Yeah, I need to get back and do some more episodes of that for the gaming channel. So when am I reacting to Epic History's new video on Napoleon in Egypt? I will probably fairly soon. Fun fact, I'm leading a tour in Vicksburg next weekend, so like a week and a half. And one of the guys from Epic History TV is coming on that tour. He sent me an email. I think it was an email or a Instagram message. I can't keep track of it all. He sent me a message of some kind and told me he was coming on the tour because he's going to take me and my son out to dinner the night before the tour starts. I think he's a writer for them. So I'm excited to meet him. I think that'll be fun. We got about 30 people going on that tour, so that's pretty epic. Operations Room, will you or the History Underground be in Normandy for the 80th? Yes, JD will be there. I will not. I will be in France during the 80th of Normandy. I'm actually flying home on D-Day from Paris. I decided I just didn't want to deal with the crowds. I was there for the 79th, and it was insane. So I can bet how much worse it's going to be for the 80th. I know JD's going to be there, though. I'm going to be at the Somme that week. We're going to go to Ypres. JD will be with us in Ypres that weekend before. But then JD's going to Normandy. And the rest of us, I think, are going to Ypres. Going to the Somme. I decided against going to Normandy. Have I considered reacting to The Chosen on my extra channel? Actually, yes. That is something, Spencer, that I will cover. I think, putting on my Christian hat now, The Chosen is phenomenal. I absolutely love The Chosen. It is exactly the way I think Jesus and his disciples should be portrayed. And I think it's opening up the stories of the Bible to a lot of people who might not otherwise have connected to those stories. It's so good. I think even if you're not a Christian, you can probably enjoy it. It's really, really, really good. I love it a lot. What got me interested in history? So a couple of things. One was when they found the Titanic in 1985. I was 8 years old. And I found myself going down to the library because that's what you did when there was no internet. I went down to the Niles McKinley Library, which is built real close to the birthplace of William McKinley, and got all the books I could find on Titanic and read about it. And then right about that same time, Gore Vidal's Lincoln came out, which was a TV miniseries. I think it was a couple years later. And that and Ken Burns' Civil War documentary just caused me to become obsessed with the Civil War history. And that has been kind of my primary area of expertise ever since, because I've been studying it literally since I was a kid. So those were the things that really got me into history in the first place. Darth Racer, thank you for that. Many consider Great Britain as the first country to formally abolish slavery. We know that's not true, though, right? As you mentioned, Haiti. The Haiti slave revolt, I see that as affecting only Haiti, and you still had a bloody civil war years later. That's true. In Mexico, abolished slavery before the British Empire did. So we have to give them credit as well. There were certainly countries, but the British Empire obviously is one of the first big major players to abolish slavery in a big area. What do I think of Bruce Springsteen's song Youngstown? It's pretty good. I'm not a huge Springsteen fan. Just never really got into his music. I certainly recognize his talent and the reach that he has. It's kind of like the Beatles. I never got into the Beatles either, but I certainly recognize their popularity, and a lot of people do like them. So yeah, I mean, I've heard the song. It's pretty good. So many super chats. Somebody said, yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm trying not to only read the super chats either. I'm just trying to catch up with all of those before I can get to the other ones. MC Binks, thank you for 9 months of membership. You had a friend to die today. I'm really sorry to hear that. I know all too well what that's like. Will I ever do something on the Underground Railroad? Absolutely. We've actually got stops on the Underground Railroad right here in the area where I live. There was one in Gettysburg at the Dobbin House restaurant, which has got really good food, by the way, that you can see there. It's definitely something I'd like to cover. With the World Cup coming to North America, it would be interesting to find some interesting U.S. soccer history. Yeah, hey, the U.S. I believe is still undefeated against Lincoln against England all time in the World Cup. Yeah, because I think we drew against them this year, didn't we? Or in this last World Cup. Oh yeah, Spencer already asked me that one. I think. Hey Zach, what's going on? Zach's been a member for 24 months. What is going on, Zach? Thank you for your long-term support, even though you're a Houston Astros fan. Han. I should look more into Rutherford B. Hayes. So interesting that you mentioned him because I was actually just reading up on him the other day. He had a son that he named Manning Force Hayes. And why I thought that was really cool is because Manning Force was the colonel of the 20th Ohio Infantry, which is the unit I'm writing a book about right now. The 20th Ohio Infantry. I'm writing kind of a Band of Brothers style look at the men of the 20th Ohio Infantry. And there's so much incredible information out there about those guys. And one of those things I stumbled upon was the fact that Rutherford B. Hayes named a son after Manning Force. But he's an Ohio Union vet for sure. He was governor of Ohio, served in the 23rd Ohio Infantry along with William McKinley, the only one of the thousands of Union regiments that could boast that they had not one but two presidents in their ranks, which is crazy to me that two presidents came from the same regiment. Captain Lamp, I recently went to the Gettysburg battlefield. Amazing how close Slice's Little Round Top and Devil's Den are to each other. My favorite spot on the Gettysburg battlefield is a spot where you can stand and see the wheat field on your right. Like you can literally almost stand in the wheat field and see Devil's Den and Little Round Top on your left. It's such a crazy spot on the battlefield where you can see so much of that July. Like you can literally see almost the entire July 2nd battlefield from that spot. Have got to take a look at the field of Waterloo. Well, you're in luck because the first week of July, I'm going to be at the Waterloo battlefield because I am going to be a part of an archaeological dig at a hospital site. They just recently, for the first time, found actual skeletons on the Waterloo battlefield. They haven't found many of those. They found a couple, and it was the site of one of Wellington's hospitals after the battle. And they're going back to excavate that site. It's a group called Waterloo Uncovered. One of the guys, Phil from Time Team, is a part of that. And it's something they do that they involve combat veterans to help with their PTSD. And for the first time this year, they're going to have some American veterans there. And I'm going to be a part of it for 3 days to kind of document it. We're going to interview some of the folks involved with it. I'm going to show you some of what they find. Super excited about that. And I'll be doing some content about the Waterloo battlefield itself. Patrick Stewart, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This year's been off to a mixed bag of a start for me. Your 108-year-old great-grandmother passed. It was quick and peaceful. You are very blessed. She absolutely had an incredible life. Amazing. God bless her. 108 years. I'm sorry that you lost her, but man, what a life and what stories she must have had. My goodness, she was born during the First World War and then lived through the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, World War II. My goodness. So I'm sorry for you that you lost her, but I'm glad that you got her for as long as you did. Thank you for that super chat. Indy Nidell's D-Day coverage was on 79th anniversary, not filmed on it. Yes, in fact, Indy and I talked about that because when I was over my very first trip to Europe, I went over and I went to Verdun and I went to the Somme and I filmed content for the channel. And he and I were talking about that. And we were trying to figure out if we could connect. And he was actually going to be going to Normandy to film some of that stuff for the anniversary when I was in France. So we weren't able to connect, but I'm still hopeful we're going to make that happen at some point. Indy is a fan of vlogging through history. He and I have talked a number of times, and I definitely hope we can connect at some point and do some stuff together for sure. Joe Caldwell, thank you for that. I love your weirdest weapons reaction video. Do you think that January 6th event at the Capitol will be seen? I think it's going to be seen as less impactful. Honestly, I think just like anything when it comes to politics, everybody goes to the extreme with it. I think the people on the left are blowing it way out of proportion. And I think a lot of people on the right are minimizing it way too much. So somewhere in the middle is probably where it should be remembered. I mean, this idea that people claim it was like an attempted coup, it wasn't that. It was wrong. It should not have happened. It is disgraceful that people did that, and we should loudly say so. But an attempted coup, an attempted overthrow of the government, it wasn't. It was nothing like that. Our government is way stronger than a mob storming the Capitol. It was not going to unend our democracy and our system of government, anything like that. But it also isn't something we should blow off as no big deal. So I think from that standpoint, I don't think it's going to be remembered the way a lot of people would like it to be remembered. All right. Are we? Oh, we're still not caught up with super chats. I apologize to anybody. I'm trying to see some of the other stuff as I go. You said you hate both major parties in the U.S. JJ McCulloch did a video on if there was more parties. I'll have to check that out. I know he's Canadian, but I wish we had more options. I wish we had like 5 or 6 parties. I think that would be a really good thing for America. Did I interview veterans of the 20th Ohio? Obviously, no. But here's what's really cool. I was surprised how much there was out there. There were a bunch of guys in the 20th Ohio who regularly wrote letters home to their hometown newspapers. And so I've got a ton of those because a lot of those newspapers are available digital form online. And so just doing like going to newspapers.com and just doing a search for the 20th Ohio, I found like literally hundreds of newspaper records with letters written back from guys in the 20th Ohio describing what happened. We have Osborne Oldroyd, who was in Company E of the 20th Ohio, who kept a diary every single day of the Vicksburg campaign. A lot of details in that. Manning Force, who was the commanding officer of the 20th, has all these papers that have been left to the Ohio archives that are available. So there's, and then all the pension files for the veterans. I've been digging through those. So there's a lot out there, a lot more than people realize. I'm really going to be able to tell. Honestly, if anything, I'm kind of overwhelmed with the details to where I'm thinking about maybe focusing it on one company instead of the whole regiment because there's so much. All right, where are we at? Do I watch Eurovision? No, I don't even know if it airs over here. JD says, finish that 20th Ohio book and let's see if Apple TV will develop it into a series. Yeah, I wish they would. Honestly, if they were going to do a series on a Civil War unit, I'd love to see them take on the Iron Brigade. I think doing the Iron Brigade would be phenomenal. You got great characters that they could focus on, really amazing stories. I think the Iron Brigade would be a fantastic mini series. All right, where are we at on any chance for a podcast revival? Here's the trouble with the podcast. It's a matter of here's the thing. How do I put this? I am being stretched really, really thin. I have way more opportunities than I have time. I'm trying to bring people on board with my team, like build a team to help me to be able to do more things and to help with covering some stuff so I can do more of other things. In a given week, I get hundreds of emails, messages on Instagram, not to mention the comments on videos, which I still try to read all of. And then there's endless invitations to be on other people's podcasts, speaking engagements people want me to do, those sorts of things. And then I try to do meetups for fans. I have tours I'm doing. I have my own content that I'm creating. I have research trying to write this book, multiple channels that I'm doing. I just unfortunately don't have time for it all. And for a podcast that honestly, and I get that if I spent more time on it, it would probably have a greater return. But honestly, for the time that I was putting into the podcast to make maybe $20 a month, which is about what I was making on it, it just wasn't a good use of my time compared to a lot of other areas. So did I enjoy it? And did I know a lot of people were enjoying it? Yes. But until I can find a more efficient way to make the podcast, I don't know. Robert, new member, thank you. I appreciate that. Grady, do I have any book recommendations about Longstreet and Sherman? I haven't read any about them. I've read both of their autobiographies. Sherman's I thought was really good. Not as good as Grant's. Sherman's a lot more intellectual than Grant, and it kind of comes across. It's still really good, though, and I would highly recommend Sherman's autobiography. Longstreet's I struggled with. Longstreet, and I understand that Longstreet had a very specific purpose in writing his near the end of his life when he was trying to kind of clear his name. It came across like that's what he was trying to do. Like he came across as trying to prove how smart he was and trying to prove himself. And for that reason, I struggled with it. I just had a hard time with it. So I have a hard time recommending it for those reasons. Yeah, from the UK, you played at the West Brom Academy at the stadium a while back and beat them, playing in a few weeks for your team. You'll be thinking of me. Yes, I walked past the academy. It's right there across the street from the stadium. This week, hopefully on VTH Extra, my visit to the West Brom to the game will be up with I went with my friends. So excited about that. They won, so that was great. You love Indy's World War II coverage? Yeah, Indy does a great job. He's a good storyteller. I think he does a really good job with his channel, the channels that he's a part of. The Real RMG, member for 18 months. Thank you for that. Even though the war was already over, if the Brits win the Battle of New Orleans, do they try to renegotiate? No, because all the negotiation happened, I think because of the communication factor, by the time word even gets back about the Battle of New Orleans, it's irrelevant because that stuff has been decided. Speaking of, I'm going to be visiting that battlefield site with JD this summer. We're going to be a part of the American Battlefield Trust Teacher Institute, and JD and I are going to be doing a forum there as well. Down in New Orleans. It's actually right after I get back from the Waterloo battlefield. So we're going to be visiting the Battle of New Orleans, the battlefield site, when we're down there. So I'll be doing some content for the channel from that site. A little worried about your Buckeyes this year since y'all hired Chip Kelly is your offensive coordinator. Yeah, me too. Honestly, though, my big concern is our head coach. Sorry if I'm making some noise here. I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm eating a snack. Maybe if Chip Kelly calls the plays, it won't be as bad as Ryan Day calling the plays. Thoughts on Thomas DiLorenzo's books on Lincoln? Honestly, I don't think much of them. I think he's full of it. I don't really think very highly of it. Why some social media sites were down all of a sudden? Yeah, I know Facebook was down. I don't know if they've ever said why it was down. So I don't know. What is my favorite museum that I've been to? I can't pick just one, but I'll give you a couple. The Overloon World War II Museum in the Netherlands is awesome. It's amazing. Really, really good stuff. As far as private collections go, Eric Doerr's collection at the Gettysburg Museum of History is nuts. What all he's got there. It's really, really cool. What's another one I've been to that's really that I really like? Let me think about this for a minute. The British Museum in London. Wow, some amazing history there as well. I'm eating a nutty bar. I apologize. What's the difference between the constitutional monarchy and the United States? They both have a constitution who holds much power. In a constitutional monarchy, our head of state, the head of state, like say in the UK, doesn't change based on elections. It's a hereditary title, whereas the head of government is elected. So that's why I like constitutional monarchy. I like the stability of that hereditary head of state. Greetings from Estonia and Latvia. I really like your content. First time visiting the stream. Covering World War II in the Baltic region. I'd love to get to the Baltic region and do some history, not only on World War II, but just in general. So yes, I'd like to do some more Eastern Front stuff for sure. Rob says that's a fashionable looking jacket. Rob was with me when I bought this jacket. It is my new favorite. It's really cool. I like it a lot. It was only 26 pounds at the store at the West Brom team shop. I bought that at the game. It was clearance, so it was half off. It was only 26 pounds. So good. Of course, when you're an American buying things in UK sizes, you always have to get a size up. So this is extra large, whereas it would actually be a large or maybe even a medium in the US. Do you own any cool history memorabilia? Yeah, my collection is growing all the time and I'm very proud of it. I'll be right back. I'll show you a couple of the latest things I got. Okay, so I have some more that I'll show you here in just a few minutes, but let me show a couple of things here. And I don't know if Marcel is still in the chat. History War Cinema, if you see him. This one came from Marcel, and it's got a really cool story with it. His uncle, and Marcel, correct me if I get any of this story wrong. Marcel's uncle, I think it was in the Netherlands when the Allied paratroopers came during Operation Market Garden and when they liberated the town. I think his uncle was a kid at the time, and a paratrooper gave him this flag, gave his uncle this flag. And I think they even have a fairly good idea of which parachute infantry, I want to say it was an 82nd Airborne unit. And I have it written down somewhere. I don't have it on the top of my head here, but I have it written down somewhere what that unit was. And Marcel said that his uncle always said that he thought that that flag should go back to America. And so when we were in Verdun together last fall, he gave that to me. And I'm honored beyond belief to be able to have that on display here in my collection of memorabilia that I have. So really awesome. So I don't know if Marcel's still in here or not, but if he is, he can kind of speak to that a little more. A couple other things I'll show you. This is one that I just got. And it's a newspaper from World War II. And you see there it says 331st, first at Rhine and drive to Berlin. And I'm going to be framing this one. My great uncle was a squad leader in the 331st Infantry, which is part of the 83rd Infantry Division, the Thunderbolt Division. So he was a squad leader in Company C. So I thought that one was really cool because they were the first at the Rhine River in the drive to Berlin. This I just got, and I won't show you too much because I don't want to get demonetized. But this book is called Covenants with Death, and it was published after World War I. And it's full of pictures from the First World War, including a lot of pictures of bodies on the Western Front and things like that. But what was amazing about this version of it is that somebody had put this in the front cover, and it's a picture of a British soldier who was killed in the war. And it says, in loving memory of Private Walter Hardiment, killed in the war, December 7th, 1914. Rest in peace from the horrors he experienced. So I just thought that was really quite something to have that. And there's a lot of other stuff, and I'll probably do some more videos showing those. I did get a couple of pictures recently as well of named soldiers that I have. This is a German soldier from, I think that one was German. Yeah. This one's a German soldier from the First World War. This was taken in Verdun in 1916. And this is an Austro-Hungarian soldier that I have, and both of them have their names written on them, which is really cool. But I got a lot more that I could show, and I'll probably show some of that stuff off as I get a chance. Patrick Stewart, my great grandma saw at least part of the tenures of 19 U.S. presidents and parts of the reigns of 5 British monarchs. Wow, yeah, George V. George V, 1916, she was born. Yeah, George VI, Edward VIII, Elizabeth II, Charles III. Wow, that's crazy. Amazing. Quattro, thank you for that. Have I ever heard of the Caledonian Braves, a team in the 5th tier of the Scottish pyramid? And you can be a co-owner? What? Okay, time out. I learn about some. I'm taking a picture of that chat so I can remember that, because that's actually kind of awesome. I watch a couple of YouTube channels, guys like Footy Adventures, and I think he lives in Scotland. He goes to a lot of lower tier Scottish matches, away days, channels like that. So I'll have to see if he's done any videos on them. But that's really interesting. Would I see Sherman as a war criminal for his march to Atlanta? No, I would not. War is hell. You know who said that? Sherman, and he was right. I think Sherman did what he needed to do. Do I plan a video on the 1st Minnesota? I covered them briefly in a video from in my Gettysburg series, but I haven't done a full dedicated video on them. That's something I probably would like to do at some point. Chancey Hales, thank you, from Wyoming. Yeah, my family and I are doing well, and I would love to get back to Wyoming at some point. Beautiful state. Would I ever do a video series on Native American? Yeah, actually, hoping to get to the Little Bighorn battlefield, or Greasy Grass battlefield, as was known by the natives there. And I definitely want to be able to tell the story of some of the people on that side who participated, do some dedicated videos to them, and some other stuff as well at some point. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a great topic to cover. And there's a lot of that history, even where I live in this area. Christian, yes, I'm going to get to the favorite 80s songs on VTH Extra soon. Sorry, I got to take another bite here. John, yes. Iron Brigade, Orphan Brigade, Irish Brigade, a real Grant Sherman series. I agree with all of those. Just became a patron. Thank you, Brian. Ever do anything on Morgan's Raiders? Yeah, I'm actually in all my spare time, I want to actually do a video series where I actually retrace the steps of the raid, because it came to an end about 25 minutes from my house. I passed the surrender site every week on my way to church. The northernmost battle of the American Civil War between uniformed people from the Confederacy and the Union happened outside of the town of Salineville, Ohio, which is the church that I pastor is in Salineville. One of the units, one of the Union regiments that was brought in by train overnight to confront Morgan's Raiders, actually took positions right outside of our church building as Morgan's Raiders were coming in. And my grandpa's great uncle was in Morgan's Raiders in a Kentucky unit and was captured at Salineville that day. And then the surrender happened later that day. So yeah, I definitely want to do that. How can you remember and recall so many names? That's one thing that I've always been really blessed with, and it's one of the main reasons why I can do this channel. I have a really, really easy time remembering stuff that I read. Most of it sticks around somewhere in there, though. I'm going to be 47 this year, and I have noticed that the recall portion of my memory is a little slower than it used to be, especially when I'm doing streams and recording reaction videos. There are times that I'll know that I know a piece of information, but I can't access that piece of information. And it takes me a few minutes to recall that bit of information as we go along. Shout from Michigan. Since Ramadan is coming, do I think I could watch historic? I definitely do need to cover some Islamic history. You're absolutely right. This would be a really good time. Ramadan would be a great time to do that. I'm assuming you're Muslim since you're bringing it up. If not, I'm sorry. But is it Eid Mubarak? Is that what they say to people who are celebrating Ramadan? Help me out with that, Malik. John, thank you for that. Writing the Longstreet record at Gettysburg, 6 Matters of Controversy and Confusion by Corey Farr is great. Gettysburg Peach Orchard about Longstreet versus Sickles. Excellent. I have not read either one of those. Did I go to the Portsmouth Historic Dockyard? No, I don't know if you're talking to me, but no, I haven't. So my recent trip to the UK, where all did I go? So I stayed in Birmingham for 8 nights. So that was kind of my home base, but I was all over the place. I went down to London for a day, went to St. Paul's Cathedral. We did the steps, my friend Joe and I, all the way to the top of St. Paul's Cathedral. We get all the way to the top of St. Paul's, and the guy who's working at the top of St. Paul's looks at me and he goes, "Hey, you're vlogging through history." So that was pretty cool. We did a couple of meetups. I did one in London. We had a bunch of people show up to that. That was a lot of fun. Did a meetup in Birmingham as well at a pub called the Old Contemptibles, which was all kind of decorated with stuff to do with World War I, which was really cool. If you're not familiar, the Old Contemptibles was the nickname for the British regular army on the Western Front in World War I. Apparently, Kaiser Wilhelm said something to the effect of getting rid of those contemptible British regulars, and the nickname stuck. Went to Shrewsbury and did a video about that town that you'll get to see. A lot of history there. Went to Wrexham, saw a football game there. Went to Manchester. Didn't really see the city of Manchester, but spent some time in Greater Manchester. Spent a lot of time in Birmingham. Went to the Black Country Living Museum, which is really cool. Peaky Blinders has been filmed there. Sabaton filmed their video for 1916 there. Where else did I go? I went to Leicester. Saw the grave of the original grave of Richard III. Saw his current grave at Leicester Cathedral. Went to the Bosworth battlefield, Rob and I, in a pouring down rain, and saw the Bosworth battlefield. Went to the site where we believe Richard III was actually killed, which is not on the historic Bosworth battlefield, but it's a couple miles away from there. So covered a lot of stuff in our time there. Quattro, I do need to get to the Shenandoah Valley. You worked at the museum on the battlefield in Newmarket, and we are owned by VMI. I have not been there since college. We had a track meet at William and Mary. No, at Washington and Lee, not William and Mary. William and Mary is further east. At Washington and Lee University, we had a track meet. And when I was in track in college, my two events were the 10K and the 5K, which are like the first and last event, which meant I had like 3 hours in between events. And so we went in and explored the town. I saw Lee's tomb at the chapel, saw Stonewall Jackson's grave, all of that. But I do want to get to the Shenandoah Valley and do some stuff for sure. Been sub for years and a Patreon member. Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. PLC, thank you for the super chat. Free accommodation in Edinburgh if you ever want to visit there. I was there with my family in the summer of 2022. Loved it. Definitely hope to get back. Have I read Unruly by David Mitchell? Well, funny you mentioned that because the publisher sent it to me. There it is right there. I have started reading it. It's really good. I enjoy it a lot. And yeah, they sent it to me. So I got that copy for free. That was the first time the publishers ever sent me a book. So that was kind of cool. Historians are very divided on this. And I know that a lot of people like to quote Tick, the channel, on the Germans needing to invade the Soviet Union in order to get oil to keep their vehicles running. No, I completely disagree that was the case. Number one, they were already getting that oil from the Soviets in a trade agreement. Now you can argue, would that have stopped at some point? Maybe. Would Stalin have eventually gone to war against Hitler at some point? Maybe. But here's the bottom line. What actually happened? He ended up wasting millions of lives and material and oil on that invasion that he could have desperately used on the Western Front. So no, I will never agree that Hitler had to invade the Soviet Union for oil. He had to do it for ideology because he believed that they were a natural enemy. So it was natural it was going to happen at some point. Have I recovered from the mighty Nissan? He's referring to the ride that we were on in the greater Manchester area. I talked a little bit about our time together earlier. Yes, I have recovered from the mighty Nissan, and I'm looking forward to our next visit to a pub together. I had a great time with you guys. Really appreciate you guys taking the day to drive me around. All right. See a bunch of people arguing about Trump in the chat. I'm not going to get into that. Do I know anything about the 10 men from the 70th Ohio killed in the wreck of the USS Argosy? I do not, actually. Sorry. Adam Duvall, thank you for that. You asked about the first Minnesota. Yeah, I think I already answered that one. Hello from Portugal. I do have to come to Portugal, Miguel. I hope very much to get there at some point. Genie Vlogger, Jarrett, what's going on, my friend? At Roots Tech. When is Roots Tech? Do you have a date for that? I definitely need to get there. And is it going to be in Salt Lake City? I hope it is, because I've only got 2 states I haven't been to, Rhode Island and Utah. So that gives me an excuse to get there, Jarrett. You're absolutely right. I do need to get to Roots Tech. There's a couple of things that I need to get on my schedule so I don't plan something else during that time. One of them is the show of shows that JD goes to every year. And every year, the last 2 years, I've seen him going there, and I'm like, oh man, I can't go because I had other things already going on. Have I been to Boston? Yes, several times. I've never been to Old North Church, though, so I can't say one way or the other, but Boston is definitely worth visiting. A ton of history there. I was actually in Boston when COVID broke out. Jarrett just texted me. Okay. Oh, no. That's when I'll be in Egypt. I can't go next year. I'll be in Egypt. Oh, man. Sorry. That sucks. Besides family memorabilia, most of your historical nuggets are coins. Awesome. So my favorite memorabilia, my favorite family memorabilia, I've got 2 things. I'll show them to you guys real quick. Okay. My 2 favorite family memorabilia pieces. Here's one. And I've talked about this one before, both of these before, actually. This is a piece of a tree known as the Tory Oak. Now, you can Google the Tory Oak. I actually made a very crude, very poor quality video about the Tory Oak on my gaming channel years ago when I was in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Tory, in addition to being a name for the Conservative Party in the UK, it was also the name given to loyalists during the Revolutionary War, people who sided with the crown during the Revolution. And so the Tory Oak is where Colonel Benjamin Cleveland would hang Tories in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And my ancestor, my 6th great grandfather, Captain William Riddle, was one of those Tories that was hanged on that tree. And this is a piece of that tree because back, I think in the 1980s, the Tory Oak was destroyed in a storm. It was blown over. And so the Wilkes County Historical Society cut it up into pieces and started selling them as souvenirs. And so when I was there, I bought one. So I have a piece of the tree that my ancestor was hanged on. And fun fact, one of the guys who was in the party who captured Captain Riddle was a captain named Benjamin Greer, who was also my ancestor. William Riddle was my mother's 5th great grandfather. Benjamin Greer was my father's 5th great grandfather. So yeah. But the other one I have is this right here, and I just got this recently. This is a $60 continental currency note. It's paper money that was printed during the Revolutionary War, and it was signed by a man named Joseph Snowden, who's my 7th great grandfather. He was one of the people who signed continental currency. So I've been trying for years to get my hands on one of those, and I finally did. Both Joseph and his brother were signers of continental currency during the war. That one's from 1779. All right, I think we are almost caught up here. Custom worship. Thank you for that. Would I ever cover some more space stuff like Apollo missions video? Yes. I would definitely love to do that. I've always been fascinated by the space race, and that's definitely something we can talk more about. Okay. Eric, thank you for that. First time, long time. Ever heard of the Veterans History Project through the Library of Congress? Your spouse works there. No, I haven't actually. I'll have to check that out. I know my friend Leighton had talked to me a while back about us possibly doing some kind of an event at the Library of Congress. I don't know if anything ever came of that. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. Primal B, the 9 axes test is more accurate. Yeah, I could definitely do that. I'm taking pictures of some of these chats so that I remember these things because I don't have anything to write down with at the moment. Okay, so ever check out more of ancient history? So here's the deal. In 1 month, almost to the day, actually the day of the solar eclipse, I'm flying to Italy. I'm going to be in Rome, Florence. My hotel in Rome is literally like a block away from the Colosseum. Florence, we're going to Monte Cassino, and we're going to do a tour of the battlefield. And I'm going to Pompeii. So excited about these ancient historic sites, and I am going to be filming all of it. And if past history is any indication, maybe in a year or so I'll get the videos edited and get up on the channel. No, I'm trying to do better with that. I have 55 videos worth of historic site content I have not uploaded yet. 55 videos. So there's that. Hello from Arkansas. What would be the most accurate World War II film? Oh my gosh. I am not enough of an expert on World War II to be able to say. I know that the recent Midway movie was very accurate historically as far as the events that it covered and how it portrayed them. It's pretty accurate. The Longest Day, I mean, obviously has some inaccuracies with it, but I think covers a lot of stuff pretty well. Honestly, I'm sorry. I'm just probably not the best person to ask that question to. Maybe some other folks in the chat who know more about World War II history could speak to that better than I could. Have you ever thought about applying for Jeopardy? I have several times, and it's frustrating. Sorry, I always sit on one of my legs, so I have to adjust a lot. Jeopardy is not as cut and dry to get onto as you might think. Doesn't matter how smart you are, how many questions you can answer, and typically, granted, they're on TV and there's a different level of pressure involved. But typically in an episode of Jeopardy, when I watch, I probably know the answers to 2/3 of the questions. So I feel like I would do pretty well on Jeopardy. But the problem is that the process for that is that you take an online test and they don't tell you how you did on the online test. And then they basically throw you into a pool and then they randomly draw people out. So I've applied for it a couple of times, but it's just really not as easy as you might think to get on there, unfortunately. Dr. Fauci, what a name. I've been seeing a lot of far-right people on Twitter spreading a quote from General Patton saying after the war, the wrong side won. He didn't say the wrong side won. He did say something to the effect that they were fighting the wrong enemy. He believed very strongly that the Soviet Union was the real enemy, and that while we already had an army over there, that we should have teamed up with what was left of the German Wehrmacht and gone after the Soviet Union and prevented any kind of a Cold War afterwards. So he didn't say the wrong side won. But Patton privately did have a very low opinion of Jews. He spoke very highly of Germans. And hated the Soviets. That's definitely true. Listen, George Patton was a great general, but had some pretty awful parts of his character, some serious character flaws, for sure. T, not T. Thank you. Hello from work. Just joined Patreon. Thank you for that. What Ancestor Finder pack would I recommend for purchasing to find the most accurate info on relatives? Also excited for the Buddhist Expansion series. Yeah, so Buddhist Expansion from Extra History will be the next series that we take a look at. That one our member and patron vote. By Ancestor Finder Pack, I'm assuming you mean like what membership, like to a genealogy service. There's several that have strengths and weaknesses to them. And honestly, it depends on where you're researching. I think Ancestry is probably the best paid service, but MyHeritage is excellent. Find My Past is a great paid site if you're researching UK sites. Scotland's People is a good one for Scotland. FamilySearch.org is great and it's free and has a ton of records, but isn't necessarily as user friendly as a lot of those other ones, but it's getting better. Do I believe in American exceptionalism, the belief that the United States is distinctive, unique, or exemplary compared to other nations? Why or why not? Whew, that's pretty deep, man. That is a heavy topic. Do I believe? Yes and no. I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit on this one. Do I believe that the United States is uniquely better than any other nation? No, I don't. There are plenty of nations that I can see great strengths and great weaknesses in, my own included. I love my country. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely do love my country. It's not perfect, though. And I think that the United States has been a much more net positive on the last 200 years of world history than net negative. I wouldn't say it's uniquely exceptional. So I guess I'm probably about 80% of the way to what you might call an American exceptionalist. So what's my favorite soccer team? You're looking at them right there, West Bromwich Albion. That's my favorite English soccer team, but I have teams that I root for in other leagues as well. Columbus Crew are my favorite team here in the States, defending MLS Cup champs. And they're also our local MLS team, even though they're 2.5 hours away. They're still my local team. Let's see, Rangers in Glasgow would be my favorite Scottish team. Hoffenheim in Germany in the Bundesliga, which I know riles a lot of our German fans up a little bit, but I chose them because they're the closest Bundesliga team to where my family came from. What is my opinion on Rosecrans as a general? His terrible performance at Chickamauga overshadows everything else, but others have disagreed. I agree that his terrible performance at Chickamauga overshadows what was otherwise a pretty good record. And the fact that Chickamauga didn't end his career shows you that he had some stuff to fall back on as a general. Chickamauga was awful. It was really, really bad. But I would say up until Chickamauga, he was probably a solid B as a general. And gosh, do I wish that Lincoln had followed through on his brief consideration of making Rosecrans his running mate in 1864. Rosecrans was a Democrat. Lincoln wanted to put a Democrat on the ticket, ended up choosing Andrew Johnson, and we know how that turned out. Speaking of Eric Dorr, have I read Fierce Valor? I have my autographed copy, autographed by both Eric and Jared. Here, yes, I have read it. Fantastic book. Listen, I know both of those guys personally, and they're both first-class human beings. When you meet people that you only know from afar because you see them in videos like Jared with his videos that he does on Real History, which, by the way, if you're watching Masters of the Air, you absolutely must watch Jared's series where he talks about the history behind every episode. It is phenomenal. I was going to do something like that, but after I saw Jared's first couple of episodes, I thought, I'm not going to bother because what Jared did was so much better than anything I could have come up with that all I'm doing is pointing people to Jared's videos because they're so good. He's Dr. Jared Frederick now, just got his doctorate. He's a professor and so good. I mean, really, really good stuff. You have to check him out. But Eric as well, super nice guy, very generous with his time and his resources. I can't say enough good things about either one of those guys. Holy super chats, Batman. Yeah, this is by far the most super chats I've ever had in a video. And I think it's probably because I haven't done streams as much as I should lately. I promise, and I know I've said this before, guys, I'm going to try to do better with live streams. We need to do these more often. And I'm also going to be sometime later this week doing a private stream for our patrons and members. That's something that I promise to do more often as well. So I'm going to try to get to those. I'll ever do some fictional history content. Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Star Wars. Yeah, that's something I could do. I could see myself doing. Could talk about Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. I definitely am planning to do a video about Tolkien's experience on the Western Front. So there might be some connections there. Is Wrexham my team? No, West Brom's my team, though I do support Wrexham. And as long as they're in lower leagues, I will continue to root for them to do well. I think it's a great story. And I love and I think the people of Wrexham love what Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney are doing for that community and that team. It's kind of like they're playing Football Manager in real life. So it's pretty cool. So I hope they do well, but West Brom are still my team. Richard III, he was not killed directly by Henry Tudor. He was killed by one of Henry Tudor's men. So yeah, he was killed in battle against Henry Tudor, though. Hey, VTH, he was a consul of Rome. Yes. That's a great quote from the HBO series Rome, which is so good. Is the railway that I was discussing East Lancs? Yes, I believe that is the railway that we were at. We went to the museum there that has all that stuff. Didn't take a ride on it, though. I should do a video on Daniel O'Connor, the liberator, got Catholics the right to sit in the UK Parliament, was an outspoken critic of slavery, and was a huge inspiration to a young Frederick Douglass. Very cool. You're right. I absolutely should do that. That sounds like an interesting story. And I'm taking a picture of that so I don't forget. Your dad was huge on the Civil War. He has a newspaper from 1863 from the New York Herald titled The War. Very cool. Wow, Arctic Girl, thank you so much for that. As a Jeffco athlete, Evergreen Girl, your activism for Columbine. Oh, let me tell you something about that. It's close to you. Question, best place to get info on military records, 5 uncles you're researching from World War II. National Archives is frustrating. And here's the unfortunate reality with that, Arctic Girl. Most of the World War II personnel records were destroyed in a fire in St. Louis in the 1970s. So unfortunately, more often than not, that's what you're going to find out is all the World War I and World War II records were destroyed. We tried to get my wife's grandfather's records. He was in the 379th Bomb Group in the 8th Air Force. And his record was one of the ones that was destroyed. All we were able to get was his discharge paper, and that was all they had. That's the unfortunate reality. But you mentioned being from Jefferson County in Colorado. Here's something cool that I can go ahead and announce on here. I had a phone conversation about a week ago with Daryl Scott. Now, if you're not familiar with Daryl Scott, I work for him. He is the father of Rachel Joy Scott, who my daughter is named after. Rachel Joy Scott was the first student killed at Columbine in 1999. The 25th anniversary is next month of Columbine. Daryl, along with his wife Sandy, are the founders of Rachel's Challenge, which I've worked for the last 10 years. And they are some of the most dear to me people in this world. They are beautiful human beings. And they are like family to me. I get a little emotional just talking about it because I know what they've been through. And they are literally some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. And it is the privilege of my lifetime to have spent these last 10 years being able to share their daughter's story in hundreds of schools all over the country. And Daryl called me about a week ago and asked if I would be willing to do something on Columbine for Vlogging Through History for the 25th anniversary. And I told him I absolutely would. So sometime I'm going to try to figure out where I can fit it into my schedule, because I'm going to Vicksburg next week, and I'm going to Gettysburg in Italy the first couple of weeks of April, and I'll be getting back from Italy 3 days before the Columbine anniversary. So I don't know where I'm going to fit it in, but I'm going to try to fit it in. They want to fly me out to Colorado to do a video on the history of Columbine, what happened there, show the site where it happened, show the school, show the memorial, go to the grave sites. But also to talk about the original name for what became Rachel's Challenge was the Columbine Redemption Project. And that's so true as to what Columbine is, or what Rachel's Challenge is. The Scott family took this horrible, horrible thing, the murder of their daughter and these 12 other innocent people. They took this worst thing that ever happened to them in their lives, and they have made something beautiful out of it that has saved hundreds of lives and changed thousands of more lives. And I could not be more in awe of them, but they've also taught me what it means to show forgiveness to people who have wronged you in horrible ways that I will never fully understand. And so I very much want to make that video also about what they have made from this horrible thing that has happened, and talk about Rachel's Challenge. So I'm going to be doing something about that at some point. I'm in the process now of putting my thoughts together on what that's going to look like. And then I'm going to go out there and I'm going to interview Daryl. I'm going to interview Rachel's brother, Mike. I'm going to interview Christy, the CEO of Rachel's Challenge, who used to be one of my fellow speakers and is now running the organization. So Arctic Girl, definitely going to be more coming about that. So sorry to kind of divert from all of the other history stuff to talk about that. Favorite non-history games of 2023. Playing a lot of Football Manager right now. I been playing on my own. I took a team from the 8th tier of English football, and I've got them all the way up to the championship. I'm now in my 10th season, trying desperately to get to the Premier League. I am currently in second place and looking at promotion, a third of the way through my third season in the championship. So that's my main non-history game that I'm playing right now. Have I done any videos or know anything about the Dakota War of '62? Yeah, John Pope was shipped out there to Minnesota after his debacle at Second Manassas. I don't know much about it, but yeah, that's something that we could definitely cover at some point. All right, we're going to go a little bit longer here, not too much longer though, guys. I do need to eat some dinner at some point. Mark, don't feel bad about not super chatting, and I apologize to everybody who are posting questions that I haven't gotten to just because I'm trying to get to all the super chats. It doesn't mean I don't value all your other questions. I'm just trying to get caught up as best I can. What historical figure needs a movie that hasn't had one yet? Ulysses S. Grant, 100%. I know it's coming, but it hasn't happened yet. Germany was always going to invade USSR. Yeah, I think that's probably true, based on the ideology. Will I come back to Johnstown to film content about the Johnstown flood? So you may or may not have seen it, but I have a very early video that I made before Vlogging Through History existed about the Johnstown flood when I was there speaking at a couple of schools in Johnstown. But it's not the best quality. It's not nearly as good as my more recent stuff. And I do want to get back and do some more. And I've talked to Jared Frederick from Real History about doing a collab while I'm there. So I'll probably do that in conjunction with something with him. Do I know anything about the H.L. Hunley? Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because one of the 55 videos that I have filmed but have not yet edited and uploaded is my visit to the H.L. Hunley. I actually got to go there on a day when the center was closed. I got to sit down with a spokesperson from the organization, the Friends of the Hunley, I got to have some private time with the submarine and its tank there. They took me back in the back room where they're doing restoration of the thousands of artifacts that they recovered from the Hunley. I visited the grave site of all 3 crews of the Hunley. So that video is coming. And for those of you who don't know, the HL Hunley was the first submarine in history to successfully sink an enemy ship. It sank in the process, but it did. And yes, as JD says, I do need to get to the show of shows. MC Binks, you lost a friend today in a car crash. Yeah, I'm really sorry. And if you're ever in Nantucket, yes, I'll need to get there. I am absolutely going to play Manor Lords. I am so excited for that one to come out. Really, really excited about Manor Lords. If Hitler really had to invade the Soviet Union for ideological reasons, why did he not wait for his war with Britain to end first? Great question. One that he alone knows the answer to. You say Eid Mubarak during the holiday Eid. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. So you say Ramadan Mubarak. Okay, very cool. Glad to know that. Hope to meet you as well someday, Malik. Lots of Civil War battlefields I haven't been to yet. Probably the biggest Civil War battlefield I haven't been to so far would be... Give me a second to think about this. I really haven't been to the Petersburg battlefield. I've been near the Petersburg battlefield. I've been to the Richmond area. I need to get to the crater. I think I've been to pretty much all of the other major battlefields of the Civil War. Oh, do the video on the white van almost killing me on extra. Oh, yes, I do need to do that, and I need to do my Ouija board video as well. My thoughts on AI song covers featuring historical. I haven't seen any of those yet. I have seen ones of like Freddie Mercury singing "My Heart Will Go On," stuff like that. And some of them are actually really impressive. Janine, thank you for that. Your mother died in 2017. My father-in-law died in 2017, and you want to get her adoption records because her DNA doesn't match the story she was told. They were sealed. I don't know. I would direct you, though. Earlier, you might have seen Genie a Vlogger in here. He knows a lot more about that kind of stuff than I do. You might check out his channel and pose that question to him. Unfortunately, I just don't know enough about how it works with adoptions, and I know it varies from state to state anyway. Caesar versus Alexander. My money's on Caesar on that one. Have I ever visited the White House? The outside of the White House, yes. The inside, no. I did get to just visit Parliament, which was awesome. My friend Joe took me in Parliament, and a couple of points there, we were the only 2 in the House of Parliament, the House of Commons. That was really cool. Like I was 6 inches from where the Prime Minister sits, and I wanted so badly to sit down, but you're not supposed to, and you're not allowed to take pictures in there either, so I didn't take any pictures of myself. Operations room for Hitler pushing east and taking on the USSR was the war. Britain and France was the unplanned irritation to that plan. Great point. He didn't want to fight Britain and France. They declared war on him because he declared war on Poland to get to the Soviet Union. That's a great point. Getting Soviet oil was a perk, but not the reason for pushing east. I 100% agree with everything he just said. Yes, it will be my first time in Italy. Super excited. Justin, when it comes to the topics that you talk about in your videos, do you have an idea of what you're going to talk about every day? No, I don't. And there are days that I take forever to figure it out. Yesterday, what did I do yesterday for the video? I can't even remember what my video was yesterday. What was it? I'm going to look because I can't remember. So yesterday, was the video about or from Legal Eagle. I literally sat here for an hour trying to figure out what reaction video I was going to do yesterday before I settled on Legal Eagle. Sometimes I just don't have a clue what I'm going to do because there's a lot of things that go into it. Number one, I try not to do the same channels all the time. So I've done a ton of extra history, for example. I try not to do the same topics all the time, which is hard because I have comfort topics, just like we all do. Topics like the Civil War, British medieval history, presidents, things that I'm comfortable talking about because I know a lot about. So I feel confident talking about those. When we dive into topics I don't know much about, my fear is that I won't have a lot to add. And for me, I don't want to do reaction video where I'm just going to sit there the whole time and be like, oh, wow, interesting. To me, that doesn't add anything of value for you guys. So I want to know that I'm going to have something of value that I can add to it. So that's part of it. Also taking into consideration the length of the video. If it's an hour-long video, do I have the kind of time to sit down and make what's probably going to be a 2-hour reaction video? So that's part of it. Certain channels I have to plan in advance because I know they're going to get automatically claimed by YouTube's copyright system, and I'm going to have to appeal to get that removed. So one example of that is history buffs. So history buffs, because they use video clips and very often audio from soundtracks of movies, that gets automatically detected by YouTube's copyright system, and I have to fill out a form saying what I'm using it for, and that'll go to like the movie company, the studio. They'll review it and then they'll release the claim, which they always do, but it takes time and sometimes it takes several days. So if I don't plan in advance that I'm going to do that video, I won't do it because I know I won't be able to make it live on the channel for several days. So all of those kinds of things go into it. So sometimes I really don't have a clue what I'm going to do. All right. Boy, I'm holy cow. I'm 20 minutes behind on the chat. So I'm getting there, guys. I promise. Content about the Troubles. Yes, that is definitely something I'm going to do. Sorry, I'm going to try to get through these as quick as I can to get caught up. Outside of the Civil War, what books have been the most fascinating to you? Oh yeah, I hope you do, Dylan, get the chance to go on a trip with us one day. The book that I just read by Harry Crosby, it's called On a Wing and a Prayer. Really good. Unruly by David Mitchell is a really good one I just read. What else have I read recently that was really good? Masters of the Air was a good book. I do a lot of audio books. Like I have an Audible subscription because I travel so much. So I'm doing that a lot. A World Undone is the best World War I book I've ever read. Napoleon by Andrew Roberts is a really good book. Let's see. The Longest Winter by Alex Kershaw. Really, really good. It's about the Battle of the Bulge. The Psalm by Peter Hart was a really good one. Yeah, I guess that's probably some good ones for now. Okay. Hamad Ahmed, hello from Michigan. To go along with someone earlier, the channel History March has videos relating. Yes, and those are probably the ones that I'll do. Ramadan Mubarak, like you said. Thank you for that, for clarifying that. Always glad to learn something new I didn't know before. I definitely want to cover some early Islamic history, and I'm going to take a picture of that so I don't forget. That'll remind me to do that series at some point. Would the U.S. Navy losing at Midway change the outcome? I would say no. It changed the timeline. I think the outcome of Midway didn't change the outcome of the war. It sped up the timeline of the war. Would losing at Midway have done that? No, I don't think it would have changed the outcome. I think it might have lengthened the war. But the U.S. always had a Germany first policy anyway, so we were still going to finish off Germany when we did. It just would have meant that there would have been more time to redeploy a lot of those resources. I think in that case, what ends up happening is more of the guys who fought in Europe would have ended up going to the Pacific by the time the war was over. Patton became ill when he saw a concentration camp with Eisenhower, especially when he saw bodies when they opened train cars. Who wouldn't have, right? I mean, I think that's probably true for anybody. Oh, sorry. I got a really bad itch on my back here. Okay. Every time you come to this channel, you learn something new. I'm glad, Michael. That is the hope. And the cool thing is, more often than not, every time I make a video for this channel, I have learned something new as well. I haven't seen Dune 2, but I've heard good things. I've heard a lot of people say that it's really good. Any book recommendations for a good first-person perspective on World War I? I haven't read any good first-person perspectives on World War I, but A World Undone by G.J. Meyer is the best book on World War I that I've read. Patton had no problems in deleting the Hun. Yeah, for sure. Elements. Do I think Khalid ibn al-Walid was a better general than Napoleon? Impossible to say. I say this all the time, and I know it's kind of a cop-out answer. There are certain people that I say need to be in the conversation for greatest general, and both of those men need to be in that conversation. Beyond that, I couldn't say, because it's impossible to compare people who never really fought against each other. Possibility of a members patron viewing party of Monty Python with me. We could do something like that. That would be really interesting. Let's see how we. Okay, I am 16 minutes behind getting caught up on the chat now. Was you ever considering covering forgotten weapons? Ooh, that'd be interesting. Yes. And Bam Bam Bigelow says, imagine if the Columbine gas bombs went up. Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize that Columbine was meant to be a bombing. The two boys actually stood outside in the senior parking lot, which was right outside of the cafeteria, where they were waiting for two. They had rigged a couple of propane tanks with timed explosives. I think 11:17 they were supposed to go off. There were 500 people in the cafeteria, and that was the plan, was to blow up the cafeteria and then shoot survivors as they fled. Thankfully, the bombs did not go off. Steve, kinda. It could surface. We actually don't know what happened for sure. The best working theory on the Hunley is that because, they had to go with the tides. It didn't have enough propulsion of its own to where it could go against the tide, because the speed at which the tide goes out and in is faster than the Hunley could travel. So they had to go out with the tide and come back in with the tide. And so the theory is that after they sank the Housatonic, that they actually sat the sub on the sea floor, which isn't that deep at that place, waiting for the tides to change so they could surface and ride the tide back in to Charleston Harbor. And they just ran out of oxygen. That they miscalculated how much oxygen they had, and that's probably what happened, based on the fact that they didn't seem to have been in a panic situation. There's no sign of trauma or anything like that. They really don't know what happened for sure. Quattro, video on the 201st Fighter Squadron in World War II. Interesting. I'm not familiar with them. Am I going to Gettysburg in July? No, because during the anniversary, I'll be in Waterloo in Belgium. And then I'll be in New Orleans the week after that. Yes, New Orleans in July. Isn't that going to be fun, JD? All right, I'm almost caught up with the super chats. Andrew Honeycutt, you're from Northeast Tennessee. Very cool. My great-great-grandfather was born in Strawberry Plains. I think that's in Jefferson County, Northeast Tennessee. And I have ancestors from Hawkins County. That's where my Melungeon ancestors came from. Have you ever heard of a book called Divided Loyalties? That sounds familiar. Why have I heard of that book? How the American Revolution Came to New York. Is that the book? Or is it a different book with that name? There's interesting. You're going to be in Vicksburg, Andrew? Oh, yeah. I recognize your name now that I see it. Very cool. I have played War of Rights, definitely. And yes, I would like to get to Greece at some point. I do not watch rugby. That's not a sport I've gotten into yet. Favorite non-soccer football team and or player, Cleveland Browns. And favorite player would be, I'd probably have to say Nick Chubb. All right, we are almost where are we at now? I am 6 minutes away from being caught up with all the super chats. Have I watched the Johnson County War with Burt Reynolds, Tom Berenger, and Luke Perry? Wow, interesting cast. I have not, but anything with Tom Berenger in it's probably pretty good. All right, I'm just getting caught up here. First of all, which Python film? Oh, it'd have to be The Holy Grail. That's the only one I'd feel comfortable watching with an audience. The Greatest Within. Thoughts on Salahuddin in Baldwin IV. Cool story. I think a lot of people's only real knowledge of those two comes from Kingdom of Heaven, which we know is obviously fictionalized, but I think two great men in two very different ways that people don't know enough about, I don't think. Do you have any tips for anyone who might be wanting to become a social studies teacher, specifically for one for secondary education? Any tips? Yeah, do it. We absolutely need people who are passionate about history, but also passionate about sharing that in a way that makes students love history. Can never have enough of those. Talk to just about anybody who says that they liked history class in high school, and they'll tell you it's because they had a great teacher. A lot of people love history because they have a great teacher who made them love history. So, would you ever do a Draw My Life? I'm not familiar with what that is, Zach, so I don't know. Speaking of drawing, though, I did just record some voice parts for the next Drawn of History video. I guess I can probably tell you who I play. I play Charles V, minus the giant chin. Xiang Wong Song, thank you for that. What do you think of the proposition that the Roman Empire fell after losing in World War I in 1922 because Ottoman sultans assumed the title of Caesar of Rome? Nah, the Roman Empire was gone long before that, and there have been lots of people who have claimed the title of King of Rome. I mean, the Romanov dynasty of Russia had claimed it for centuries by that point. Yes, Chernow's, his biographies in general are great. I've done his Washington biography, his Alexander Hamilton, which is really good. Michael, how you doing, my friend? Yes, sir. Going to see you next week in Vicksburg and then in a couple weeks in Italy. And Michael's also already signed up to go to Egypt. So Mike and I are going to get sick of each other, but I'm looking forward to it. Do I think RFK Jr. has a chance to win in November? Probably not, but man, if ever there was a year for a third-party candidate to have a chance, it's this year, because there's a whole lot of people that don't want to vote for either one of these guys that are going to be leading the parties. Quattro, if I could be a historic advisor for a battle in a Civil War movie, which battle would I pick and who would I focus on in that battle? Shiloh and Grant. Pretty easy one for me. I think we're caught up. Oh, good. All right, we're gonna go a few more minutes here, guys. So last chance to get your questions in. but I did finally get caught up with the chat. So, just to talk about other upcoming things, we do have another trip to Germany and Austria in December, which is available right now. And if you just go look for the video I did announcing that, the link will be there for the trip to Germany and Austria. We have 20 spots available on that one. I think only one book so far. Egypt will be going live here in a couple of weeks. That'll probably sell out pretty fast. We've got the Teacher Institute, which is only for teachers, coming up in July. Going to be in Gettysburg first weekend in April. And I'm sure I'll be doing some more things as well coming up soon. I am in the early preliminary stages of planning a Western Front tour, group tour for sometime in early 2025. When will there be an itinerary? I did send out an email with the itinerary for each of the 2 days of all the stops we were going to make. If you didn't get it, it's because you just registered, because I did have several people register yesterday and today. So if you're one of those people, you haven't gotten the email yet, I have to go in and manually send you all the emails that have gone out to the group. And that'll include that. And I'll be sending out another one here this week with some final details about that. Nathan, thanks for the recommendation. If I read any of David McCullough's book, 1776 was really good. That was the first one. That one, and did he write John Adams? I think he wrote John Adams. That was really good too. Oh, that John Reedy just said those specific two. Yeah, those are the two that I've read. Chad, no, unfortunately, I do not do genealogy research anymore, because when I first announced that I was doing that, and that was back when I had like 50,000 subscribers, I was getting like 4 emails a day from people wanting to hire me. And I just, unfortunately, just got stretched too thin. Bigger victory, Gettysburg or Vicksburg? Vicksburg. I think Vicksburg was the more important victory. Gettysburg was much more the PR victory. It was the first time Robert E. Lee was beaten. He was beaten on Northern soil. So it got all the press, and it did a lot for morale. But strategically speaking, Vicksburg was the bigger victory. No, genealogy websites are not a scam. I have been a member. I have been a paying member of Ancestry.com for 13 years. I've been a paying member of MyHeritage for probably 5, and British Newspaper Archive and newspapers.com for probably the last couple of years as well. I am familiar. I've visited his grave at Arlington National Cemetery. He's actually in a mass grave with several other people that were in the crash that he died in. Yes, Tora is a fantastic movie. Really good. Do I think there will be another Civil War? Probably not. I hope not. All right, a couple more questions, and we're going to wrap it up right here in just a minute. I've been talking for a long time, so I do need to get some dinner. It's almost 7 o'clock here, but we're going to stream more often, so I promise we'll try to do this more often. And if you are a member or a patron, be watching for a post about a member or patron stream. It'll probably be Saturday, but I'll when I know the details, I'll figure that out. Would I collab with Matt Easton, historical weapons YouTuber and specialist? Sounds interesting. It sounds like the kind of thing I'd love to do. I've been wanting to do more experiential things, where like I do a video where I fire an M1 Garand, or I wear a suit of armor, or I go like with the guys who do that channel Tasting History, and I experience some of the food, those kinds of things. I need to do a better job of reaching out to other YouTubers and planning collabs. Most of the time when I do collabs, it's because they reached out to me and I'm like, yeah, I would love to. I'm not very proactive with that kind of stuff. It's not because I don't want to. I think it's just because I'm an introvert by nature. It's just kind of how I am. Civil War book recommendation for a beginner. I think James McPherson is a good author for. I think he's the one that wrote Battle Cry of Freedom. That's a really good one to start with. Okay, I apologize to anybody who whose questions I didn't get to, especially because there were so many super chats. And I thank you all for the fantastic super chats. I really appreciate that. And this whole stream is going to be live on the channel, so you can go back and watch it later. Thank you guys for your continued support on the channel. Really, really do appreciate it more than I could possibly ever express to you. We'll see you guys all again soon. Thanks for watching.